hope you all are well. Uh, I believe this is my maybe third or fourth time trying to record this. Somehow part of the video became corrupted. So, what I wanted to speak of is a personal experience of mine, and it is an experience of abuse. Unfortunately, this is an experience of mine that came from the hands of my biological mother. Now, before I get into how that has impacted me and what I did to free myself from that, I want to begin this with the fact that she was a person of abuse. Her biological mother abused her when she was much younger, my mother. Much of that came from her own mother, and then there were times where her father would intervene and support my grandmother's efforts of abusing my mother, which I'm sure ignited the sense of loneliness and misunderstanding. But much of these individual occurrences were gifted to me by my father, especially since he was married to her, and there were times where he would go to get her so that they could spend quality time with each other, and he would unexpectedly walk in and experience these disturbing moments he never thought he would see with his own eyes. Uh, there are stories of my grandmother being profane towards my mother, always attacking her character, making her feel little about herself. She always committed gaslighting in various ways. She always had her clarity repeatedly attacked, her self-worth constantly damaged. There's stories that I have received of my mother and her mother physically fighting, throwing phones, pillows, and not being correctly disciplined physically, which by many families that would be considered as appropriate to use a belt. But other tools were used. My mother was always pitted against her sister and vice versa. And to an extent, my aunt, my mother's sister, in my mother's eyes, was always painted as the golden child, the one that, for the most part, did everything that was right. And so, and also, no matter what my mother did to win her mother's approval, her efforts always failed her. It was never enough. So, of course, at some point during her early adulthood, late teenager years, my father and mother decided to marry, bear children, my sister and I. And though the relationship was a decent occurrence at first, my mother still refused to defend her self-worth and the knowledge that she deserved a life that was void of such troubles. So each time that my grandmother would contact them both, it was always my father whom defended them. But see, that effort must be a combined effort, a combined mission that is always fulfilled. Should the trouble arise, that effort should come from both the husband and the wife. So, uh, my father, my father's interest in not only her but the life of the relationship constantly diminished. The more and more my mother failed to defend their marriage, the more and more my mother would uh, go out and party late at night, uh, spent less and less time with her own two children, the more she would wrong my father for not contributing his own efforts to us. I mean, even saying the words, uh, she wants to come and go as she pleases. Uh, that, oh, and even when my father was jobless and he would search and apply for job after job many times, there was even no encouragement from her. There were times where he was filled with so much rage, disappointment, and confusion. There was a time that he could accurately recall him taking a small dose of that out on me. My sister was not even born yet, so if I'm not mistaken, uh, that made him feel more terrible because he knew in that moment that was not him. So all of that just resulted in his decision to tell his um, tell his wife that they needed to divorce. It was best that this relationship type came to an end. Of course, she aggressively disagreed, tried to wrong him for it, even tried to keep me and my sister to her in order to uh, force my father to have less and less time with us uh, while this issue was being handled in court. So now to fast forward into my deeper into my adolescence, my teenager years, this 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 almost all of this accumulated pain that she still had stored within her was not properly attended and erased, even though she had a personal conversation with both my sister and I about the things that she was a victim of. She still never sought any remedy to help her mend every part of her that was broken. Much of her was still living in the past. And she has yet to reach a level of not only strength, but clarity that would enable her to realize that much of this was her fault. Yes, she did not ask to be abused by her mother, but her healing is still her responsibility. Ooh, somebody needs to write that down. Some of your wounds may not be your fault, but healing from those troubles is your responsibility and yours alone. So to fast forward, moving, going through school, meeting new friends, trying to keep up with friends, uh, exploring romance, and uh, all all a culmination of self development, trying to figure out what my purpose is, what my sister's purpose is. This is much further in our lives where I started to notice this behavior of her more and more, and it was annoying me. But I never, I was not sure how much strength I needed in order to stand up against it and say this is wrong. So uh, then there were times where I would either physically run away or move out to live with someone else in order to regain some sense of peace and grounding, to stay focused and in constant pursuit of what I wanted to manifest in this reality. So, uh, this is when much of what she has been a victim of took place. So, I experienced um, some forms of gaslighting, having my sense of self being attacked and denied, my sister and I always being pitted against each other. So, when one of us was wrong, my mother would seek the refuge, the ear, okay, the understanding, and approval in order to reinforce her own state of belief that she was right regarding an action that was displeasant. And, and that was a repeated occurrence. Um, Much of what I explained so far and and other tactics of abuse uh, did attach itself more so to my sister. So you could say she received more of the brunt of it. Uh, no matter what she did, she could never win my mother's approval, uh, which would then produce the result of her mindset or her perception of her own daughter to be changed. So, uh, hmm, there were times where I would be attacked for certain words that I would use intelligently and accurately in certain sentences, and I would always be told by her, my mother, that I should not be saying words if I do not know their meaning. You're not using them correctly, so you should be quiet. Uh, there were times where I needed to be careful of what I should watch. My goodness. Then there was less and less support of what I wanted to become, type of career or impact that I wanted to have on this world and its inhabitants. It was always get a job and just make sure you have a lot of money because a man can't eat if he doesn't work. And you know, as much merit as that saying or scripture may have, you also have to resist the urge to just work yourself to death just to have a life. I mean, your happiness and grip on your self worth and how much you matter should come first. Your health should come first. Your inner peace should come first, not what you do for a living, let alone where you live. So, uh, after a while, I gained wind of her wanting to marry someone who uh, has been living here in Georgia, which is where I currently reside, although I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Uh, and she strangely began falling for him quickly and his promises. After they became married, let's say in the early 2000s, I believe was 2005 to 2009, this achievement was discussed and then completed between them. Uh, I am not sure why I decided to come here with her. That was not a form of an abuse. That was a decision I chose. I'm not completely sure why at that time I did. Uh, Nor was I completely aware of my personal experience of being abused was to come. I was not sure of that, but uh, hmm. So this is still to this day a man whom is self-centered, predominantly selfish, is arrogant, and the majority of his focus is towards money, financial success, and how he can breed more of it. And my mother is okay with that because the life of my father and mother was middle class, much more of a lower middle class, almost the lower class category or the lower class of citizens. So it became clear to me that she did not like that. And it also became clear to me whom fed such a mentality to her mother. I remember a point when I decided to say something to my mother about my stepfather's behavior, his conduct. I told her I disagree with it. Well, you didn't say nothing about it at first. Well, I said, well, first of all, it's going to take me some time to get to know him. Doesn't matter how long it takes me personally. And two, why are you not noticing his behavior towards you? His behavior that is completely unacceptable, but you put up with it. This is a marriage of convenience. He has way more money than my father has ever produced so far in his life, but it is costing her health, her peace, and her joy to this day. And she knows this. There's times where she decided to stand up for herself, but her grounding was still weak. She was not well grounded in the knowing that she deserved a relationship where she was never overlooked, always accounted for, respected, assisted with feeling special within her own skin, and supported for anything she wanted to improve on or should improve on. So, this was again, a marriage of convenience. You cook and clean for me. I pay all the bills. You don't have to worry about it. If I want something ironed or put out for me to wear, you do that. If not, I get mad at you for it. My gosh. So, uh, and there's many times where my mother would explicitly admit out loud how she was exhausted and irritated with it, but she still does it to this day. And so she would always expect me to assist her with that, clean up for him, clean up after him, uh, clean and look after a pit bull he once owned, even though it died when it was, I believe, 15, which to this day I'm convinced he basically abused the dog and killed it. But of course, he would refuse to see it that way if I ever told that to his face. To paying them rent, uh, which in this context, that is wrong. I'm not saying paying rent is wrong, but for the type of scenario I am expressing here. So, um, this I became quickly irritated with. Even a time where I began to work for my stepfather's father and the fast food enterprise that he still owns to this day. I believe August 2010, and maybe 3 or 4 years later, I decided to stay with my dad to gain some sense of inner peace and focus again. Uh, my mother was just almost completely oriented to rubbing the ego of her husband and his father, all because of the financial stability it enabled her to have, which is stupid to me. You sacrifice your joy for financial stability. You start losing parts of your character. So, and even clarity of your reality. So, uh, I had enough of that over the years. Uh, this one time, I gave my W-2 forms for to my mother and stepfather for the first time, and I remember asking, "Where's my money at?" Because regardless if you're a part-time or a full-time worker, you're going to earn something back. I remember her saying clearly, as if she said it yesterday, "This money is for the house." It became more and more clear to me quite quickly where her focus was. And I was not going to allow myself to become a victim of that poison. No. So when I told my job that I would quit and I wanted to keep the W-2 form myself, and so that and also so that it is not given to my parents. So I learned how to do it, and then I decided to confront them about it, and that was no easy task because I had to gather so much of my own internal strength, focus, and confidence, and wield that in their presence. What caused me to eliminate most of my trust and comfort towards my mother was not just because of her repeated act of thievery, financial abuse, and also not just because of the physical threats my stepfather expressed, okay, of attacking me, pushing me, beating me. Um, but that night, it was the fact that my mother allowed him, while she was sitting in the living room, and I was in the living room speaking to her about it, and he was in the kitchen preparing him something to snack on. She allowed him to threaten me. That's what hurt the most. You care more about a man who is garbage to you instead of your own two children who have at that time constantly yearned for your motherhood. So even though there were times where I would ask for some level of assistance from her, I decided to reposition myself and reground myself in the fact that it was poisonous for me to keep asking her for help, and to realize that I would be provided by the force, or whatever you want to call it, the universe. Uh, that was a moment I had to reposition myself to realize it can and will provide for me, because it always knows what you do and do not have, what you can and cannot do, and what you lack in. As long as you are taking the steps to use what you have at your disposal currently to manifest what you want and what this world greatly needs. And this was around August 8th, the 8th, and August 9th of 2021. And I just said, I want no more of this. Like, completely divorcing myself from being her son. I want no more of her motherhood. I'm tired of you putting your uh, utterly disturbing, arrogant husband first. And then I tightened my grip on the knowing that I deserve a better life than this. So I took a minimalistic approach uh, from that month going forward, all the way until May 11th of last year, actually. Uh, Reduced my inventory of clothes and hygiene products and survival tools. Man, made sure my bike was stable so that I could ride it. I told my roommate at the time that I was going to leave, although I had no idea how I would achieve what I aspired to be on my own. Um, whom was also aware that all that I just expressed during this video was true, because some of that mistreatment he gained as well. So, um, so I left. I left, and from that point up until now, it was a life of homelessness. And yes, that is a difficult thing to say. There have been a few places where I have stayed, but much of it has been outside, trying to stay warm, sleep comfortably, safely, and of course, the most chaotic of all necessities is wondering how I'm going to eat while trying to pursue what mattered most to me. There were a few relationships with people I became friends with that I should not have chosen. Other relationship types I shouldn't have done. And I noticed that I was losing grip of the level of grip that I had over myself, and focus that I had uh, during the 8th and 9th of August uh, regarding my life pattern and how I should put myself first more than I ever have before. So at the moment, I am still constantly working on myself, and I even spoke to my mother recently. I noticed that she was constantly calling other people in order to gain information about my whereabouts and my well-being. Yes, that is natural for any mother and father to do, but because of the story that I'm expressing to you right now, it's still more hectic and unnecessary. I spoke to her recently. I calmly told her I appreciate everything that she's done. I still have love for her, or even though, to be more specific, during this video, that is, the amount of that is extremely small, to the point where it's almost obsolete. Now, is forgiveness appropriate? No, not for these specific circumstances. And I'm even saying that to some of you who may find yourself, even at the thought of revisiting the one who has abused you, extremely uncomfortable, almost a new nightmare that could form inside you and force the role on you, the role to live it, the role to experience it. What would it be like? If it's making you uncomfortable just by the thought of it, your divine, your internal divine sensitivities is warning you to not do that. You don't go by the mentality that forgiveness being an act by default that you should choose. No. If that person is willing to change, then so be it. Even if you explain this to a child, you could clearly say, and it would still be the most accurate. If you hurt me, but you care about my relationship, you are supposed to do everything appropriate that would make me feel better. That's how you keep someone around. So if you hurt me, but you still know that I'm a valuable person, someone you genuinely care for and want to see the best for, would rejoice every time they achieve something, you would make me feel better. And then during the phone call, she says that she's sorry. See, but her sorry, it's not that I didn't give her time to. It's the fact that her sorry, the tone of it, the meaning behind it, the nature of it was loud and obvious. You're not saying that because you fully accept and realize that all of the things you've done to me was wrong, and then you're still allowing your dangerous and abusive, narcissistic husband to remain a part of your life. No, you say sorry because you want to keep, you want to maintain, and constantly enrich with the time left me and our relationship, our connection. I mean, heck, I even remember a time, and I'm kind of jumping around here a bit at this moment, but I even remember her trying to tell me how to eat so that I could refashion myself in the way that my father would. Wow, so secretly you're saying you miss my father, but you will never admit that you're the main ingredient for you guys' separation. So I chose no contact in this scenario. That's what's best for me. And that same decision may be best for some of you that this video may find well. Don't let forgiveness should be an act by default overrule your godly ability to discern what is right and what is wrong, especially in this scenario. Do not do that. I hope this was helpful. I will make more like this on this topic with some tips, actual methods, and strategies, especially if you're interested in some one-on-one consultation. I'll leave my contacts down below this video. If anything should be viewed as a pandemic, it should be this. I appreciate you guys, and I shall speak to you all soon. May the force be with you.